Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a third-party transforming figure review for you. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Magic Square MS-B35 Blues. So this is their take on a Legends-scaled G1 styled Autobot Jazz. And yeah, he looks pretty good, so let's get right into it and we'll start with that packaging. And right up here at the top you have Magic Square, Brobdingnag, man, I hope I'm saying that right, ages 16 plus. You've got some really nice artwork there of Jazz, aka Blues, MS-B35 Blues down here. On the side you have some stripes, made in China, and you do have a sad baby. Hello, sad baby, I've missed you. You have a UPC code, it's recyclable, it's good to know. And then back here you just have this silhouette of his alt mode MS-B35 Blues. This is only suitable for persons over 16 years old, so sorry 15-year-olds, you're out of luck. And down here you have Magic Square MS-B35. Up top you have a UPC code, but hidden under that UPC code is a red square that says Magic Square. And then down low you have some warnings, so use this at your own risk. Alright, so that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and crack this guy open and see what came inside the box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box, and I gotta tell you, this guy came loaded with accessories, which is awesome. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start on the outside and work our way in. So we're gonna start with those extra hands. Now, when he comes in the box, he comes with both of these hands on the ends of his arms. Oh, sorry, wrong hand. He comes with both of these hands on the end of his arms. So these are his kind of open palm, I don't know, trigger finger hands, if you want to call them that. So I've already taken the liberties of taking one of the trigger finger hands off and replacing it with a fisty hand, but this is the other set of hands that he comes with. These are the fisty hands, so not a lot of detail here. I mean, and they are particularly small, so trying to capture some of that detail for you there. I hope it's coming across on camera. But it's not a lot. You just have the sculpt work to show the individual fingers and the big gaping hole for your weapon, and then just the individual fingers, and you got that trigger finger sticking up right there, and then the big gaping hole for the weapon. So he does come with an extra set of hands. And then moving on to our next items, these are his main speakers, whatever you want to call them, and then other than being mirror images of each other, they're exactly the same thing. So I'm going to put one off to the side, and then we'll just focus on the one. So this actually comes in two pieces. This cone is separate from the rest of the assembly. So if you look closely, there's a little bit of a seam right in there. And that's where you just push this on, press fit it on. And it is kind of nerve-wracking because, you know, it takes a little bit of pressure to get that on there to where you close that seam up pretty good. But they look nice. I like them. And you have that silver tip right there. And then you've got a couple different ways to mount them. So you have some car mode ports, and then you have some car mode ports and some bot mode ports right there. So kind of an ingenious little thing that they've done with these speakers here. So you do get two of those. And speaking of speakers, you get another set of speakers. So these, again, other than being mirror images of each other, are the exact same thing. So I'm going to put one off to the side. And these are all packaged separately as well. So you have this black molded piece, and then these little teeny tiny tweeters, I don't know, call them that, speakers are separate. So they are very tiny and very easy to lose. So my recommendation to you is as soon as you get them, plug them in, and they do stay nice and tight, so hopefully they won't fall out from there. But even on this black piece, this is still pretty small, so just be careful. But it's really cool. You've got these speakers sticking out, and then you do have this tab right there where you can mount these onto the slots on his hips. Not entirely sure what's going on with this back tab here. I haven't figured that out yet. The one thing that I will say is for all these accessories, nothing in the instructions tells you what to do, where to mount, how to do it. So everything that I've done is based on photos that I've seen from the internet and my best guesses. So, but there you go. So you get one each of those to put on either side of his hips, which is really cool. So that brings us to the main weapons that he uses, and we'll start with his pistol right here. So this is definitely a blaster pistol all the way through. looks pretty good. It's just molded in gray, but for something this size, I think they did a fine job on it. Just fine indeed. Alright, not a lot to talk about there. Just looks good when he's holding it. And then you have his missile launcher. So the missile launcher comes in two pieces as well. So the silver piece is packed separately from the, well, not packed separately, they're all in the same bag, but the silver piece is separate from the black piece, and then you just push that in and, oh, look at that, lo and behold. So I guess you can, you know, pretend to launch this and, you know, twist it off and do one of those things if you want to, if you want to risk losing it, or just keep it on there, and then you're probably better off. So bringing it in for a little bit of attention. You've got some pretty good sculpt work there, and that silver looks good. And then on the black molded section, not a lot to talk about. It's tiny, and it looks good for what they've done. So I have zero complaints. I absolutely love that they've added so many accessories here. And then this is your little mount right here, so that goes in the slots on his shoulders right there by his doors, and you can put that on either side. And then this does allow you to raise it or lower it, so you can get some movement out of that as well. So really cool. And that brings us down to the last two things here. He has some additional faces. So the one he has on right now is the stock face, the one that he comes with in the box, and then you get two more faces. So these are incredibly tiny. As you can see, I'm going to have difficulty holding them and showing them to you, so I'm going to do my best here. Bear with me. Let's see if I can get this guy up here. I'm going to try to hold him. Oh my goodness. He's very easy to lose, so keep a good grip on him. I'm going to try to grab him by this little tab in the back. There we go. So I'm going to go sideways here, but that is not a good view. I'm going to try and do it right here. There you go. That's about the best I'm going to get. So that is his kind of, sort of, almost maybe smirky face. And they are interchangeable. You just pull the old face off and you stick the new face on, and you've got that tab on the back right there. So it's pretty easy to do the face swap on there. But then this is my favorite one, no doubt about it. This is his Screamy Face. Oh man, I want to show this so bad. Get a good view. There you go. That's his Screamy Face. So yeah. Oh, it's down again. Oh goodness. It is so easy to lose these things. So yeah, Screamy Face, there it is. Screamy. But yeah, he looks really good wearing this one. We'll see this later. So there you go. That is everything that he comes with. And yeah, it's quite a bit, especially when it's all packed separately and disassembled. So for a little figure, this dude is loaded with accessories, and I love it. All right, so that covers everything that came inside the box. Let's go ahead and bring Mr. Blues in for his close-up, and we'll take a look at his details and articulation. Here he is, that legend-scaled cool cat himself. This is the Magic Square MS-B35 Blues. So let's go ahead and bring him in for his close-up, and he is just a little guy, so I'm going to do my best to try to keep him in focus here. I'm not going to bring him in real close, but you can see that head sculpt, and you can see the stock face, his, I don't know, resting jazz face is what you could call it, I suppose. But for a little guy, very well done. Really, really nice touches with the paint on the visor, and the overall head sculpt, I think, looks really well done. And if we turn it off to the side a little bit here, you can see that the detail does go all the way around. So it looks pretty good. And then you've got that car hood right there, so this gives you a nice, good view of that car hood, which we'll see in the alt mode as well. And then coming on down to that midsection, I think they did a pretty good job here as well. You know, you're not going to see a whole lot. Again, being legend scaled, how much detail can they pack in? But what they have, they've done really, really well. So coming down here to the crotch, you've got that blue paint. And then those legs look good. Coming on down, he does have nice big feet, which helps quite a bit with the stability and getting him in some poses. So very much appreciate that. And then coming over here to the side, you've got that car wheel, but you do get detail right there where that gets moved for the transformation. And moving this arm out of the way so we can take a look. You've got an all right amount of stuff going on here. And he gets a little hollow if you really, really want to look and see. But really, for a figure this size, I think he comes together just fine. Good proportions. Everything looks good on him. And then coming around to the back. Yeah. Even from there, he looks good. everything works, you know. And these are necessary for his speakers, which we'll see when we get him all accessorized up. But yeah, no major hollow areas to speak of. You've got a little bit back here behind those elbows, but not a whole lot for this price point that you can expect to be done there. But yeah, overall, I really like the way this dude looks. He's got good overall shelf presence, no doubt about it. For a little guy, he packs a big punch. So let's go ahead and get into articulation. And this guy's got his pluses and his minuses here. I think you're not going to have any issues getting him into some good poses, but we are going to talk about some of his limitations and some of the really cool things that he can do as well. So normally I would start with the head, but I'm actually going to start back here with his wings, because you can do quite a few different things here with the wings. So you do have the ability to bring them forward and bring them back. You can actually bring them back a little bit further than that. They're just on a hard stop, but you can bring them back about that far, which works. And then you have the ability to fold these windows in to give him kind of that different look as well. If you want to have the windows up, great. If you want to have the windows down, you can bring them down as well. And you also have the ability to swing those doors in and get rid of them completely. So if you want to have a nice clean look where there's no wings, you can totally do that. And this just absolutely changes the look of this figure, in my opinion. So if you want to go with more of that traditional G1 Jazz kind of look, you can have something like that, you know, where his wings stick out but there's no windows. If you want to do something like the new Studio Series Jazz, then you can hide these away. And then he is very much like the Studio Series Jazz, where he doesn't have any wings at all. Or if you just want to go full bore with wings and windows, which is kind of my preference, and depending on your angle, I mean, you can bring them way up if you want to. Do something like that. You can get crazy if you want to do that, or just keep them about right there. Give him a little bit of an angle. And I did get him apart here because I was getting excited. Let's go ahead and push him back in. There we go. So yeah, you have options there for sure. Now, coming down to the head's pretty good. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of how it's designed. So I guess that's the best way to put it. And as you can see, if I turn him around, due to transformation, he's sitting on that ball joint, and he does have the ability to fold flat, if you will. So his head can go completely down like that. So I guess that's good if you wanted to put him on the ground, like in a sniper pose. You could do something like that, which is fine. But anytime you move this head, it's a nice tight ball joint, which is good. But the head, as far as I can tell, doesn't lock in. So it just rests there. So anytime you try to move the head, you're going to move this around, and it's on that double hinge. So I guess if you want to have some fun, you could, it's like, what's that? Ooh, periscope mode, you know, and you could do something like that where he gets up high. I guess if you want to do that, that's kind of fun. But for the most part, you know, he's on a ball joint, so you're going to get a little bit of side to side. You can get all that way up, and you can get down about that far. So decent amount of movement. You can go all the way around if you want to as well. So the head, I just wish it locked in. It would have made life a lot easier. Now, moving on to those shoulders. They're on ball joints as well, but they are nice and tight. You can bring them up that far. And then minding the wings, you can take them all the way around. And then down here, let's go ahead and give him that elbow bend and show that off, because he does have a very nice deep elbow bend. So you can do some really good stuff here with him as well. And he does have that bicep rotation, so you can take that all the way around if you want to. And he has wrist rotation, so you can rotate those wrists any direction you want. And I don't know why you'd want to, but you can totally do that if you want to as well. That's just partially for the transformation, and also to remove the fists and replace them with the other style. So if you want to take advantage of that, that's entirely your choice. Enjoy. All right, so coming on down, let's keep yourself together, buddy. Coming on down to that waist, you do get waist rotation, as you would expect, and you also do get a very nice ab crunch, so you can take this guy 90 degrees down for that ab crunch, and it is a strong enough joint where you can hold it, so you can get him in some nice poses there as well, so no worries at all. And then making our way down to the hips. So the hips are a little tricky, and this is where he has some other limitations as well. So you want to make sure that you flare these hip skirts out. So if they're if they're sitting flush like that, and you try to bring this leg up, the leg is actually going to hit that hip skirt. So make sure that you've got these flared out and opened before you try to open those legs for the splits. And then once you do, that's as far as you're going to get. So you can bring those legs out about that far. So you're not going to get a full split out of this guy. It's going to be enough. I mean, most people don't need a full split on their figures. It's always nice to have, but that's all you're going to get on this guy. Now, as far as kicking forward, he does shine for sure in kicking forward. I mean, he can be a complete rocket, and he can do a full, this is Sparta kind of thing, with his head way up. There you go. So yeah, that's a really cool pose. He could totally get away with that one. Unfortunately, bringing his legs back is not an option. You're not going to do it. The legs, they don't go back. Forward, great. Back, nope. They just stop, hard stop right here. Nothing's going to happen. Now, if you get your hands on this figure, you may think the same thing that I did and go, oh, well, what about that butt flap? If you take that butt flap off, maybe you'll get some additional motion, but you don't. I'm going to do the ab crunch here so you can see what I'm talking about. You forward, back, forward, back. That's it. That's all you get. Sorry, the only thing that this thing does is it covers up his ab or his waist rotation. So plug his butt cover back in and just know that you're not going to get any back kick on him. So not a deal breaker, but kind of disappointing and odd. All right, and then moving on down to the thigh rotation. You can open his legs up and go all the way around. Just mind this little piece that sticks out over there. So, you know, if you have his legs too close together, you're not going to get them in as far as you possibly could. And, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bump my camera there. And then moving on down to the knees. Knees are pretty good. He does have double jointed knees, but frankly, I don't see why you would need them, because that one single joint, look at that. That is super deep. So yeah, you're going to have a great knee bend on this guy, no doubt about it. So that really helps quite a bit with everything. Oh, look, there's his head. He's looking up. Really wished it would lock in. All right, coming on down to the feet. The feet have some limitations as well. So they're not the best, but they're not horrible either. So starting with that ankle rotation, you do get nice deep ankle tilt. Not ankle rotation, ankle tilt. So you get nice deep ankle tilt right there, well over 90 degrees. So more than you could ever possibly use with a split. So that's helpful. And then you do have this pivot joint right there. So you can, as long as he's not running into things, you can bring those feet down. And you do have some heel here. So let's get that back out of the way. You have a heel adjustment where you can bring that heel down, and that helps to get stuff out of the way. So then you can tilt that foot down, and then you can tilt the foot up and then get that heel back. So you get a little bit of up, and then if you move this heel out of the way, you do get a considerable amount of down. So I guess if you wanted, you know, kind of that kneeling pose, you could. Let's do it. Oh, where are you going? He's a little guy. I've got big fingers. So if you wanted to do something like this, do it. If you want to do something like that, you could. I'm not going to waste your time trying to pose this guy right now, but yeah, you do have that nice deep knee bend, and then you can get those feet out of the way, so that is helpful. All right, so that is pretty much it for the articulation. This guy's got it. You just got to know how to use it, I suppose, would be the best way to put it. He does suffer a little bit in that back kick, so that's my biggest disappointment, and I really wish that head would lock in. All right, so now that we've got the details and the articulation out of the way, what we'll do is we will get some accessories on this dude, and we're going to show him off with everything that he comes with. And here is Mr. Blues, fully accessorized, and I got to tell you that for a tiny figure, he's really cool. I mean, this figure absolutely pulls this off. And right now I've got him in his unleashing all of the sonic energy that he possibly can pose. That's what I'm calling it. Maybe I should come up with something shorter later. But let's go over everything that he's got going on here. So we'll start with that pistol. He does have his pistol in his hand, and he's got his Screamy Face on now. So it's good to see the Screamy Face. And then down here on the hips, you see those. Those are his sets of speakers, the hip speakers. So he's shooting sound from the hip, shooting from the hip with sound, whatever you want to say. And then on the back, well, you can see it from the back or the front, right up here, he's got the two main speakers. just in these ports on the insides of those windows. And then, of course, he has his missile launcher right here. So he is just going full bore, unleashing all the sonic fury that he possibly can. So I think this is cool. I might actually keep him on my shelf in this pose because this is really neat. And you'll see in the back here, I do have his spoiler down on either side just to help support, because I've got him leaning back a little bit, kind of like that primal scream kind of a pose. So just have those down as some additional supports so he doesn't fall over backwards. But yeah, there he is, fully accessorized. I think he looks really cool. I hope you guys do too. So now that we've got the accessories, or the accessory view taken care of, let's go ahead and get him into his alt mode and take a look at that sweet car that he becomes. There's no doubt about it. For a little legend scaled figure, this alt mode came out looking really, really good. I mean, no doubt about it. This is definitely that iconic 935 Porsche that the original G1 Jazz was. And he has all the right styling elements. Everything works here. It just absolutely screams jazz. And for a figure this size, I think they've done a really good job of capturing all that here. I wanted to throw him on the turntable just so you get a nice 360 view of him before we manhandle him and bring him in for those close-ups and everything. But I do want to point out a couple of things. Not exactly weak areas of the figure, but just little areas where when you're at a legend scaled third-party figure at this price point, I would have expected just a little bit more. And that would have been starting off with the paint. So particularly the racing stripe here would have been nice if it would have matched the same hues as what you had on those wheel wells there. So this blue is, as you can see, darker than what you have on the wheel wells. So one way or the other, either the wheel wells darker or the main racing stripe lighter. The next thing would be in the same vein as that racing stripe on the hood. As he comes back around, you can see it. It's just that big blank area where I think we all know an Autobot symbol would be, which is right here. So this is really nice for those who are going to get this figure and then, you know, use toy hacks or repro labels to add on an Autobot symbol there. So that's nice that they have it, but it just does kind of break up the flow. And then the last thing that I would say, just from an aesthetics standpoint, was really cool that they added the exhaust pipe, but they didn't paint it. A little bit of chrome paint, I think, would have really set that off. So, but for the most part here, I have no complaints. This is a really cool looking little car, and for his size, I absolutely adore him. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of the turntable, and then we'll bring him in, and we'll get some close-ups of this guy in his alt mode, and then we'll jump back in and look at him with those accessories on. Now that we have that turntable out of the way, we'll bring him in and we'll get a nice close-up on this guy. So as you can see, from a scale standpoint, he's not a big figure. I mean, this is legend scaled through and through. So let's start up here at the front and we'll take a look. I think they've done a fine job here with the paint applications for that grille and for those racing headlights. And then coming around, looking at the side, everything comes together, looks really nice. You know, no major gaps, no disproportionate areas whatsoever. He just comes looking good. You know, those wheels look great. We don't have mushroom pegs. That's always nice to see. So thank you, third-party companies, for doing it the right way. You've got that number 4 there. He's a little tiny, but I guess it would have been cool if you could have gotten some of those sponsor stickers on there, but I guess that's maybe asking for too much. And of course, you do have a little bit of a mismatch here between the back window and then that main window, just simply because of the different materials, but it's not incredibly noticeable. It doesn't really bother me much. Coming around to the back, pretty well sculpted. There's that exhaust pipe that we just talked about. It would have been nice, just a little bit of chrome right there would have really set that off, I think. And then coming around to the side, looks good. And from the top, very well done. And then down here underneath, this is the other admirable thing about these third-party companies, is unless you really, really know what you're looking for, you're not going to see any robot kibble. So, you know, this is just the underside of a car. We've got visible head syndrome there, but it is the top of his head, so nothing major as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, this little dude looks really good. Now, we'll throw his accessories on. You can use a couple of accessories in the car mode. I will tell you now that they are a little bit of a pain. Not in a bad way at all, but just it is a nice tight press fit. So you have these holes up here underneath his spoiler, right over here, and then right over here, and then that's where you're going to put those speakers. and it is a bit of a press fit, and when you have those pieces of plastic and you're pressing on them, you're definitely going to feel it on your fingers, no doubt about it. So, but I'll spare you the pain of watching me install them, and we'll just jump right over and we'll take a look at this guy with his speakers on in all of their glory. I don't know what it is, but I think this looks really cool. This is, straight out of that G1 cartoon, and they're simple, but they're effective. There's no other accessories that you can use on this guy in his alt mode, but these just look cool. This is, when I have him in his vehicle mode, this is more than likely the way I'm going to display him. And you can see as he comes back around using the mirror here, you just plug him into those holes underneath the spoilers, and there you go. You've got loudspeakers where Jazz can use them as weapons or just to entertain at a party. So they look really cool. I like this a lot. So now that we've shown that, and there's really nothing else to look at here, we'll go ahead and we'll get into those alt mode comparisons, and we'll take a look at him next to some other figures. For our first alt mode comparison, I thought I would go ahead and start with a fellow Magic Square Legend scaled figure who also just happens to be a Porsche as well. So this is the Magic Square Contain, aka the G1 Stunticon Dead End. Moving on to our next comparison. Obviously this is not a transforming figure. This is just a Porsche that Sid has in his collection. So this is a Hot Wheels Matchbox scaled car. This is from a company called Majorette, and it is a 934 Porsche, and Blues, aka Jazz over here, is based on a 935 Porsche. So hey, they have similar racing stripes. It's a 934, this is a 935. I thought it would be fun to just bring this in to give you that sense of scale, so I hope you enjoy. For our next comparison, I think this really just tells the tale here. This is my G1 Autobot Jazz, and you can see with Blues compared next to him just how much accuracy Magic Square put into this figure to try to make him match up as much as possible to that G1 figure, and I think a job well done. I always say this when I bring my G1 figures in, please forgive the condition that Jazz is in. I've had him for many decades now. I've had him since I was a kid, and he was very well loved, so he's had a good life. Next up is the Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Jazz. This is Jazz as we saw him in that 1986 movie. And for our final alt mode comparison, this is the Transformers Human Alliance Jazz. And although I love this figure and I love this car mode, I will never forgive Michael Bay for what he did to Jazz, taking him from being a Porsche and turning him into a Pontiac Solstice. Ooh, yikes. That's going to do it for the alt modes. Let's get this guy back into his bot mode and we'll do some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, I figured I would go ahead and start with the OG. This is my G1 Jazz, and you can tell there is a lot of inspiration drawn here. I think they've done a fine job here as an homage to that original G1. I mean, even these design cues down here that you can see matching up over there, really job well done, especially in that grille. Very well done. Moving on to our next bot mode comparison. This is the Magic Square, their version of the Stunticon Collide. So you can see from a scale standpoint, these two size up pretty good together. And man, I am really digging these Legend scaled figures. These guys look really cool together. Just as another example to give you a sense of scale here, this is the Core Class Optimus Prime figure from the War for Cybertron trilogy. So you can see that those Legend scaled figures are maybe just a tick bigger than that Hasbro Takara Core Class. Yeah, these two look really good together. This is the Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Jazz, and this just looks like a bring your kid to work day kind of comparison. It's really fun to see these two together. As a precursor to our final bot mode comparison, I figured I would go ahead and bring in the human part of the Human Alliance Jazz, which is up next. So this is that Captain Lennox figure that comes with the Human Alliance Jazz, just to give you a sense of scale. And for that final bot mode comparison, here we see the Human Alliance Jazz, and of course he's going to absolutely tower over the Blues. This is just a Legend scaled figure. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see these two guys together. At least they both have blue visors, so that's cool. That's going to do it for the bot mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. So there you have the Magic Square MS-35B Blues, aka Legend Scaled Jazz. And I gotta say, I'm really impressed by this little figure. He is really, really cool, and I like him very much. But let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll start with that aesthetic, the overall look of the figure. He looks good in both of his modes. We're talking about a very small Legend Scaled figure, and he pulls off both modes very well. I enjoy looking at him in both modes, and frankly, I don't know which one is my favorite yet. He is a little simplistic, just simply because he's a Legend Scaled, so when you get him into that car mode, you know, maybe he doesn't have quite as much detail as you may have from a Masterpiece scaled figure, but man, he's good. For something that's about the size of a Hot Wheels car, he's really good. About the only thing that I could say about this mode is just that, particularly in his car mode, is just that big blue square right there on his hood where it looks like maybe they left a spot to put an Autobot symbol, even though they have the little red dot down there, which I do believe is signifying the Autobot symbol. The big blue dot there just kind of breaks up the flow of that overall paint. But other than that, this guy, he just looks incredible for a Legend Scaled figure. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on aesthetics. Moving on to the articulation, the biggest complaint I have about this guy is there's no back kick. It's just the way he's designed. You're not going to get those legs to kick backward at all. For the most part, that's not going to hinder your posing ability. Right now, I kind of have him in a more of a static pose. He's not really in a dynamic action pose at this point because I have those accessories on his hips. So with those accessories on, you're kind of limited to that way, what you can do with your waist rotation and the splits and stuff like that. But if you don't have those accessories on his hips, then you're pretty much wide open to whatever poses you can think of. So even though he doesn't have the rear kick, he does have it everywhere else that you can imagine in spades. So, you know, he's got that ab crunch. He has incredibly deep elbow and knee bends. So you're going to be able to get this guy in some great poses. So I don't really miss that back kick, but it is something worth noting. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 for articulation. Moving on to the accessories. Wow, for a Legend Scaled figure, it almost doesn't get better than this. This guy is loaded with accessories. About the only thing that would make it better is if he had some of his own blast effects. If he would have come with something where it would have looked like he was firing off that pistol or that missile launcher, that would have been just the icing on the cake. But really, that's it. Everything else is fantastic. The only thing that I would say is just be careful. He does come with a lot of small pieces. It's going to be really easy to lose. And also, as the warnings on the box say, don't let him near little kids because they're very tiny and it's really easy for kids and or pets to eat his accessories. So just be careful with that. But other than that, this guy is fantastic on accessories, so I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Moving on to overall quality. You know, I've got a couple of little minor paint issues here and there. Nothing major at all, but it's really just focused primarily around the painted windows. But for the most part, you know, that's it. He doesn't have any molding defects. All of his joints are nice and tight. He came with everything that he was supposed to come with. Everything works the way that it should. Other than that minor paint issue that I have, the only other complaint that I could think of is I really wish that head would lock in. That's not even a quality issue. That's really more of a design issue, just to have somewhere for this head to physically lock into place, or at least the base of the head. So that way when you try to angle his head, look up, down, the entire assembly doesn't come undone and follow the head around. So other than that, though, everything is great on this guy. So I'm going to score him really high for quality. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Now, moving on to our last bullet, which is overall value. This is a Legend Scaled figure, so he's not very big, but talk about packing an absolute wallop in engineering and fun. I mean, this guy absolutely does it. He looks good. He's fun to play with. The transformation is complex, but not enough to frustrate you. It has a pretty good flow to it once you get used to it. So many high qualities here, but you do pay for it. You know, these are masterpiece level Legends scaled figures. So these aren't core class. You're not going to go to Walmart and pay $10 for these. You're going to pay for the engineering and the design. And that's no different here for Mr. Blues or Mr. Jazz. So I picked this guy up on tfsource.com for $49.99 or $50 US. That's a little bit on the salty side for a figure this size, but once you really think about everything that you get packed into this figure, I don't think it's that bad of a deal at all. Hopefully, if you look elsewhere, if you look at Shozy Store or tfdirect.com, some of these places, you might be able to find him a little less expensive. But TF Source, for the most part, is my go-to for most of my third-party figures, and I'm completely fine with paying the $50 to pick this guy up. He's completely worth it to me. So, as always, I would love to see him be a little less expensive, but you know, the price point that he's at, I'm okay with. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on overall value. So that brings us to a grand total out of a possible 50 points. The Magic Square Blues gets 45 out of 50 points, which puts him at 90%. Absolutely makes this guy an easy recommendation. I would say to those of you who are considering legend scaled figures, this would be a good starting point if you don't already have some. For those of you who like the Jazz figure, this is something you're definitely going to want to pick up. And for those of you who already have the legend scaled obsession, which is starting to grow on me, then I think this guy is going to be a great addition to your collection. So with that, that is going to wrap the review up. I hope you guys got some good information. I hope you were entertained. And as I always say, if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. And feel free to leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this guy or about anything else going on in the world. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.